What's up, YouTube? And tonight we actually got our last and final Diamond supporter newsletter from Carl. He begins to explain that these were initially like little, inside tips of, what's going on with the company and trying to get everybody on the same page with their overall design and things like that. But it's come to an end, and it's now community news. Like, they want to share their entire balancing process. We're gonna go ahead and read some of these, and I'm going to reflect on some of the information Carl reveals to us. We've been considering we're considering balance changes for the new league. We first examined the previous one. We achieve a lot of goals going into Sacrifice of the Vault, Ambush, Invasion, Expansion. We achieved more balance between which classes were chosen by players. We played a little more dangerously with the skill adjustments, which worked out very well most of the time, but we paid for it fairly heavily when we overshot the mark. Fire skills received a progression of long-needed buffs, which players greatly enjoyed. Burning became a little too dominant, and other elements feel more constrained in comparison. Build variety was little lower in domination and the Nemesis period. There are a few things we're looking to improve build variety. One of the uniques, the one that affected the build variety most, was Crown of Eyes. While we had foreseen it being strong, it turned out the power of the multiplicative bonuses, and when he says multiplicative bonus, we're talking about the more spell damage modifiers that you could potentially get from Righteous Fire, and more importantly, Pain Attunement. It could unlock together that was far too powerful. In 1.2.0, Crown of Eyes, including the existing ones, that means no legacy, will only be affected with the increase and reduced spell damage. It does not benefit from multiplicative bonuses anymore. So we go and look at the skill tree. What does this mean? Pain Attunement, the 30% more, no longer affects Crown of Eyes. Stuff like spell damage, this will still be attack damage. So while you're still able to convert your wand implicit into attack damage, this power charge, spell damage per power charge, and if you want, you can get 16% attack damage, both physical and elemental. These will still act as attack damage nodes, but there's no more multiplicative. These are just additive. This is a huge change for Crown of Eyes. You're going to be doing significantly less damage now with this helmet. It'll still be good, and it'll still give you added bonuses, but the bonuses don't even compare anymore to what it once was. Expect to see a huge price drop in this unique. Really huge. Spectral Throw has proven to be too good compared to bows and to melee. This is what I've been saying and preaching the whole time. Like, why is it fair that what was once a melee weapon can now do so much more damage, shoot off screen, and have the comforts of a shield? That shit was just way too... It didn't really fit in the action RPG as a melee weapon. Spectral Throw is now going to get nerfed. It's a skill we love and like to see used, but relative to bows, it's beating them in the ranged combat. It's also beating Wanders, by the way. Ranged combat is Wanders and bows as far as attack based. And it's a very safe alternative to melee options. Yes, because you have the cushy shield, and you're able to keep your distance, so you're not taking slams. You're not, Osakati, things like that, just kiting stuff. It's very safe. You also have whirling blades to move around like a crazy man. But now we're going to see some more balance to Spectral Throw and probably daggers. We're looking at improving bow users in a few ways in 1.2.0. We're buffing skills, the bows themselves, and passives. So bases of bows, I'd assumed, would be ramped up, and the skills, I would assume, get ramped up at higher levels. They got to be careful with this because they don't want to change it so much that they become so dominant in races that just fly. So there's a lot of balancing issues. However, the things that people have already crafted, since the explicit stats are already set in stone, the base would automatically go up to whatever its current, base is. All the old ones won't even matter. So if you've crafted a, Harbinger or Thicket Bow or whatever, expect it to come up to the standards that they change it to. I wouldn't worry about it. Spectral Throw and some other things that support it will be slightly nerfed. The only thing I can really think of is maybe increase proj and maybe increase physical damage to ranged attacks. I mean, it scales really well with Wed, with that LE Buzzsaw. I don't know. They might tune that down too. I don't know how they're going to actually calculate this, but Wed, attack speed, and the increased projectile speed definitely are the biggest strengths of Spectral Throw. In contrast, some past great melee skills will see a little love. Yes, that includes Cleave. Expect to see a buff to Cleave and maybe a buff to Sweep. I don't know about the other ones so much. I think they're in an okay spot. Yeah, I think that's the only ones that really are going to see any love. Maybe Ground Slam, I don't know. Ground Slam is pretty good as it is. One thing that constrains a lot of otherwise great builds is mana cost. So we have rethought mana cost from the first principles. Almost every skill is affected. LE hit is probably #1 on the list to get adjusted. That shit is just unusable and not worth it when you can, afford it mana wise. Our decision to do this was highlighted by looking at the 1 month race starts and seeing Clarity and Eldritch Battery being so highly utilized. Casters will see a few buffs to little used spells. Ice Nova, everything cold. Ice Nova, Arctic Breath, Freeze Pulse. I want to say what else? What else is very what else is a pretty shitty skill? I can't really think of any more off the top of my head. Those are like all cold skills. I feel like should be revamped. Also, Ice Shot, man. Ice Shot costs way too much. Just anything that's related to cold just costs way too much as resources. The intelligence-based classes, especially with the passive tree changes, should see big improvements. We'll keep an eye on how this goes, as the intelligence classes tend to capitalize on changes more quickly than other classes. It would be very easy for this season to become a season of Witch, if left unchecked. The already publicized removal of snapshotting mechanics should limit this a bit, but with so many changes, it will be difficult to assess. Lightning skills get some of the biggest buffs. However, this is tempered by a major change we're making to shock. The shock status ailment now provides 50% increase in damage taken, but no longer stacks. So now we're like in a state where we're used to seeing like shock damage going out of control after the first one, because subsequent ones do additional damage and they make them last longer. I don't know if they're going to keep the tooltip and the little icons at the top of your debuffs to where it's going to show multiple shock stacks, but it just stays at 50, just so you can see the actual shock duration and the hits that are incoming. That's probably the way I would prefer to see the information, to know, how much the shocks are actually increasing over time. But the damage is flat. This also means shocked ground is now buffed even harder, like it's a flat 50 instead of 30. Still going to keep that shock removal flask. It's still going to be a threat. As far as what it means for lightning skills or damage that does lightning, static blows is going to become much less. It's not going to become that much more appealing, in my opinion. It'd still be alright if you're not doing a lot of lightning damage, but overall shock effectiveness, especially like with arc, you know how you can get such a fast cast and triple shock stacks so fast. This is going to be a nerf to arc. Arc has that chain where it just goes around, comes around. Everyone's sharing triple shock stacks really fast. But upfront damage, it's going to be improved. PvP change, this is also a huge improvement, because it was so annoying hitting into a person with like with Tempest Shield and getting triple shock stacks from just doing 3 hits that get blocked. That was so frustrating, and I was constantly having to use grounding flasks to get rid of that. So this was going to help that situation of multiple attacks and then, you know, dumping it. But overall, pretty good change. I think it's good. Shadows get quite the shake up in their tree. Their starting area for Shadow is now divided into physical half, suitable for physical and caster characters, and an elemental half suitable for your elemental melee and casting needs. Yeah, this is a pretty big change. They clearly want you to, you know, branch off into certain roles. I don't see much hybridization where you would going to get both physical and elemental, except maybe like a hybrid wander or something like that. It feels like a much more cohesive tree, and it isn't such a challenge to make builds which feel natural for a mage or a combat assassin. I look forward to seeing what players come up with in 1.2.0. It's a pleasure to see when new builds are discovered, and it's good to see old builds evolve and survive in new environments. So overall, huge buffs. Sounds like melee is going to get a buff. Mana costs are going to get reduced. Like, this is going to bring a whole new meta. Just the mana cost alone, the reduction. We're going to have to replay all these, you know, skills that we're used to playing and see how much we can actually squeeze out of the tree instead of, you know, using so many mana regen. You know, that was where we were leaning towards, because mana leech up to this point has been absolute garbage. Used to be good, but completely garbage unless you got your GG, Game Genie, Etziri gauntlets. I'm surprised that there are no nerfs to Mjolnir mentioned or Etziri gloves, but maybe it's to come. But yeah, retroactive change to correct Crown of Eyes, pretty damn big, and that's probably got the most impact as far as the current markets of today in Path of Exile. Thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you guys for watching this video. Feel free to hit the like button and the subscribe button. I appreciate it. See ya.